Welcome to the N1IR Electronics blog, video number 7, breadboarding Passiflower. Alright, so I've got a circuit here that I wanted to breadboard up for another video that I'm doing, and I wanted to go over some basic breadboarding techniques. So over here we have our schematic. It's basically a 555 timer, an astable frequency generator. It's generating out a square wave, and here's our 555 timer. So I'm going to go over the breadboard really quick. We'll start off with the buses. Here's your plus bus. These connect straight up and down. They go all the way up, they go all the way down. So this one's connected to here, it's connected to here, it's connected to here, and you have plus and minus. Also on this side you also have plus and minus. And you have your pin right here. So if we connect up to pin 8, we know that that's connected. We know that this one's connected to that pin 8. That one's connected. And that's connected. So the buses run up and down and the pins go horizontal. Notice that there's a gap here. This is not connected over on this side. So that's where we put our chip, is right in the middle. Because pin 1 won't be connected to pin 8. There's a gap there, so there's no connection. And there's also a bus on the top for plus and minus. I usually don't use that, but you can use that for plus and minus bus or whatever voltage that you're putting in. So wanted to go over some things with tools. Some common tools that you're going to be using are the diagonal cutting pliers. You're also going to be using needle nose pliers and a set of wire strippers. You also want to use different colored wire. Either red for plus, I'm using orange today because I'm out of red, black for ground, and I got 2 other colors too for my signals in the circuit. So when you look at the breadboard, you can actually see how it's breadboarded up and you're not too confused. If you use one single color, you have a greater chance of getting confused, and it's harder to troubleshoot. And I always bust my students on that because they always use the same color. They're too lazy to change out the color. But basically how we want to start is I like to start on the power first. The power, pin 1 is ground, 8 and 4 is plus. So what I'm going to do is strip about 1/4 inch off. And I'm going to measure this against my those pliers. Now this width from here to here happens to be the same depth of my hole, so I don't know if you can see it or not. So when you plug this in, you can see there's no exposed wire. That's very important. When you start breadboarding, if you strip that too much, you have exposed wire that can accidentally short, and it can mess up your circuit. So, and also, the neater you are, the less time troubleshooting you have to do. So if you have a real neat circuit, which I'm going to show you how to do, it's very easy to troubleshoot versus a very messy with wires all over the place, wires the same color, etc., etc. So, you know, being a little bit neat when you're building helps out a lot in the end. Then you don't have to troubleshoot if something goes wrong. So I like to bend this at 90 degrees like that, and pin 1 is going to be ground. So I stripped a little bit off, and now what I'm going to do is come over here, and I'm just going to put a little indent on the insulation. I'm going to cut it a little bit. So now I'm going to take that indent, now that I measured it, and this is where the neatness comes in. Take my strippers, strip the wire, bend this guy to 90 degree. Now again, it'll take you a little bit longer to do it this method, but it makes it a lot neater and easier to track what you're doing. So there's pin 1, very nicely going to ground. Now here's another trick that I like to do. I like to take a highlighter or a marker and mark what I have connected. So if you go to lunch or if you take a break, you come back, you already know what you've done. And that happens a lot too, or if there's a phone call or something like that. Okay, so pin 1 is connected to ground. We have that all set. So the next one we're going to do is pin 4 and pin 8. Yeah, that looks good. So I'm going to tie these two buses together, these two plus buses and these two minus buses. So I have plus and minus on both sides of my chip. So again, mark it. And once you have some of these made up, you can also use diagonals. I like to use diagonals to strip. If you're really good and not nick the wire, you can use diagonals once you start getting more experience. Also on my wire strippers, you can see I don't have a set screw. I lost it, so I can accidentally cut through the whole thing if I push too much. So it's all by feel, it's all by practice. I've been doing this stuff for years, so I have a pretty good feel of how far I need to go in before I cut it. And, okay, so there's 8. Mark it again. Okay, so there's our power leads. Notice how neat it is, how clean. I can instantly see right now, okay, my pin 1 is connected and my 4 and 8 are connected up to plus. So let's mark that, 4 and 8 are connected to plus, right? Okay, let's go with this resistor next, this 1.5K. That's this guy. So notice that it's between 7 and 6. Now what I could do, most times when you breadboard, you want to take the resistor and bend it like this and put it in like that. But you don't necessarily have to do that. What you can do is you can fold this over like that if the pins are next to each other. So if you have a resistor and the pins are next to each other like this guy is, I can just do something like that. And notice I'm cutting the leads too. I'm keeping them short. So between 7 and 6, I've got our 1.5K ohm resistor. So 1.5K, double check it. Okay, double check the colors. Colors check out okay. Okay, next is, we got that done. Next I want to tie 6 and 2 together. Now, when you tie pins together, you don't want to have a jumper over the IC. I know it's very tempting to do. I wouldn't do it this way because if you have a bad chip in there, you want to replace it, you have to remove that jumper. And if you have a more complex circuit, you might lose your spot where that jumper went. So, you know, don't have anything jumping over the IC. So if you want to replace it or change it with another part later on, you can do that. So I'm going to bring 2 and 6 together. Notice I have a different color wire. I'm using blue. And this one's a little bit long. So I'm going to cut this down a little bit. And again, here's 2. And I can bend this guy up. That looks good right about there. Cut off some extra, so 6 is right here. Now if you don't know the IC pin out, it goes, the little dot here is pin 1, goes pin 1, pin 2, pin 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I marked my insulation. I'm going to pull this back out. Again, it is kind of a pain, it's not that quick, but in the long run, it'll actually save you some time. So if you're messy, chances are your circuit's not going to work. And you have to spend the time troubleshooting it. And what I found out, the neater you are, the less mistakes you're going to do, less troubleshooting you have to do, and it's actually quicker if you're nice and neat like this. in the long run. Okay, so there's our 2 and 6 connected together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have our resistor between 7 and 6. It's this guy. We have 8 going to plus, 4 going to plus, and now we're going to put in our capacitor here, this 5.6 nanofarad. I actually don't have a 5.6 nanofarad. I'm going to use 2 caps in series, 2.01 caps in series to bring that value to what I need. That's going to be around 0.005. So I went from 2 to a pin up here that's not being used. This is above pin 1, and it's going to be in series going to ground. So I have one capacitor coming up through ground, connecting to this side of the cap, and the other side of the cap connects to pin 2, which is also connected to pin 6. Okay, next is our pot, potentiometer. So we want plus on one side, and the middle pin goes to pin 7. So I can just bring it right over here. Here's plus on one side, going to the same line as pin 8 is. And here's another color. I can use another color to jumper that center pin of that pot. Here's the center pin of the pot. Pin 7, mark it. You can also get pre-bent and pre-stripped jumpers too. Those work pretty good too. Unfortunately, it's like all the jumpers that are the same size, the same color. So you'll have like multicolor, and that can get a little confusing. But you know, it's good for beginners if you're just doing simple circuits and you don't want to strip the wire like I'm doing here. Okay, so there we go. So that goes from, here's your pot going in. One side of the pot goes to plus. The center pin goes to 7. So we'll mark that off. One side goes to plus. The center of the pot goes to pin 7. The middle on this is the wiper, is the center part. Okay, R1 is next. That goes from pin 3. So I'm going to cut this down a little bit. So here's pin 3. Bring it down below here somewhere. And then finally, our other cap, C2. There we go. And that's it. Nice and neat. And I'll show you in the next video. Video number 8. Bye.